Welcome to TNT Unpacked with Justin Coleman and Rochelle Amore.
Hey.
Today we're talking to Kathy Ann Lastique. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Justin. Nice to be here.
As part of World Alzheimer's Month, September, we spoke to Dr. James Bratt on week before last, and it was a little boring. We'll admit that.
Yeah, I think it's because it was just James and I.
Yeah.
We needed you to...
I made the magic happen.
Basically, yeah.
I understand. That's fair. So this week we decided to give you a little bit more personal insight, make it more interesting, have someone who's actually dealt with the disease and who lives it every day to give us some insight on what it's really like losing a loved one to dementia. So, I mean, we're going to pretty much begin up all in Kathy's business.
Oh, dear.
But we'll start off with some simple questions.
So your mother has dementia.
Yeah.
How long has she
She
been
had it in
suffering?
her early 70s. She's now 88. And it was gradual at first, but then it got progressive. You know, she would start with these slides, I forgot where my wallet is, where my glasses are. And then, of course, you know, you realize that they haven't eaten for the day.
Right.
So you notice that it's getting a lot worse.
Yeah. So when she was in her early 70s, what sort of, was the giveaway that she was suffering from dementia?
Her moods will be totally not in her personality. Because she was a very outgoing, very bubbly, very sociable person, and then she just became more introvert. Didn't want to go out because she realized that she wasn't able to focus in a conversation. So I guess that's what made her kind of pull away.
Is there anything else that might have... I mean, you said at first she started to forget her wallet and small things. And when we spoke with James, we got the information that it's not only memory loss, but that is the thing that people tend to identify the most.
But their personality do change. You know, you'll realize it in subtle things. They might become a little more aggressive or argumentative. Or sometimes they don't want to socialize.
Yeah. So when you started noticing that change, is that when you took it to the doctor? Like, what was your course of
Initially,
action?
no. We said to ourselves, okay, she's getting older, so this is what we should expect. When we did decide to take her to the doctors, obviously when it got a lot worse, when we would notice that she would wander. Like if I go to work, my friend would call me and say, she's in some random part of the Vale, or she's up on the main road. I think she had on that same outfit yesterday.
Right.
So then I said, okay, this is not a good idea.
Yeah, you realized something was happening.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh gosh, so the questions just disappeared.
Oh, they forgot?
Okay, no, it was on my screen. Okay, great. You want to tell us a little bit more about your relationship with your mom before this happened, because you're telling us that there were a lot of personality and mood changes, so that must affect your relationship.
Of course, the relationship, mothers and daughters, however, special bond, yes, but then too, because of the changes, you find it was difficult, because it's like, why are you arguing about your shoes or some randomness, like, why did I not put out the meat the night before? So it was a little tumultuous at first, dealing with her moods. Her moods were the issue.
Right.
And then the responsibility, because, I now had to the roles reversed. Whereas I would expect her to be the one providing and taking care. I basically had to change over. So that, for me, was the hardest part to adjust. Because she's the mother.
Right.
So you didn't want to have to keep telling her, well, you didn't pay it. Or little personal items, you have to be very cautious with. Because they need to preserve their dignity too.
Does she get offended, like when you ask her
She
these
will
things?
you will see her get visibly upset.
Right.
Because asking someone if you'll be is kind of it's difficult for them to realize that.
It's a difficult thing to accept.
Especially for a mother and a daughter. Where it comes with spending money, that was another issue. Because then you'll have to be the one saying, no, I don't think we need that bus, really. Because we need bread. Or
$1,000.
You know what I mean?
One question. When you all went in for the diagnosis, what was her reaction to that?
Well, thankfully, at that point, she was neither here nor there. So I just basically said, we're going for a checkup. So I took her to the Pacific doctor, wouldn't call name, and she did the testing where she took out the questionnaire and probably went through 4 or 5 questions, and then she looked up at me and said, okay, I'll talk to you outside the room.
Right.
Because if I'm there, I could always prompt her. So that's why, she said, okay, afterwards, we'll discuss it. And then is when she said, well, yeah, she has early signs of dementia.
And you said that by the time you got there, she was neither here nor there.
No, she doesn't really realize that, okay, I'm going to be tested for something.
Right.
She was just glad to go for the drive,
But do you think, like, on some level, she understands what's happening to her?
I will see a glimmer in her eyes that will let me know that she's aware we're talking about her. Then if it's more than a half an hour, it's unresponsive, like, okay, well, maybe it doesn't concern me.
Right.
So there are just a little few spaces in time when you can get her to be very coherent, and after that it's not there.
Right.
That sounds like a difficult thing for a mother and daughter to go through.
Yeah, because it tears on your emotions when you're doing something for their own good, and you of yourself, you're not sure if you're doing the right thing. And it's supposed to be the other way around.
Yeah.
They're taking you to maybe a doctor or whatever for a checkup. So you have that nervousness, you have that over-anxiety, you're not sure, should I take her now? Am I giving her the right care? Should I talk to somebody else? And you have that question and you can't talk to her about it. Because she's not going to have much to say.
Yeah. So when you first realized that something was wrong and, you all went to the doctor, what was it like for you emotionally dealing with that reality?
It was not a pleasant day because you actually had to hear a professional tell you, well, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the professional could not go into great detail because there's not much information. And they'll tell you, okay, this is a sign of old age.
Right.
This is what to do. But to say, well, okay, Kathy Ann, give her this amount of vitamin B or maybe give her some olive oil. They don't go into that. You're left on your own to figure that out. Support group, she didn't even mention a support group or anything like that.
It's just a diagnosis, and sink or swim, you have to deal with it.
That's right, and I am not a person that sings very well. So that is when I decided, okay, no, I have to do something.
Yeah.
I have to get involved in something. I have to find some way to actually make her standard of life a little bit better.
Of course.
So I Googled, I talked to a lot of friends. I'm always listening out of it. Is a program on this? Is a program on that? And you get little pieces here and little pieces there, and you get frustrated.
Right.
And I don't have anybody to talk to because she has the issue.
Yeah.
And she and I live together. So it's not to say, well, I could say, well, Mom, can I get advice? There's no one there.
Is there anybody else in your home that you can turn to? I know.
Well, there are many people that live in my home, but them themselves have their own limitation with their health.
Right.
So they're not able to provide that amount of support when it comes to actually understanding the disease, coping with it, and trying to make the patient's life somewhat livable. Because there's not much they could do in Trinidad.
Right. I know a lot of people find themselves, whether or not they come from a big family or small family, just one person ends up dealing with it.
I don't know if it's a cultural thing in Trinidad and Tobago or if it's just how the dynamics is that the family feels, okay, this person is better suited or if it's always the last child or it's just something that always really does happen.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but it's true. And that person is left to not only see about their needs, but have to cope with the changes every day. Because every single day is, I'm not sure what they're going to be like today. Will they want to eat this? So you are always having an expectation of what?
Right. It sounds like a lot of anxiety from day to day.
It could become anxious if you don't put things in place for yourself.
Right.
You will get overwhelmed. That's just natural because you're human. They will repeat themselves. Did I eat water? Did you give me water? And they will, 2 minutes again. Can I get some water? And the sentence again with water. And by the fourth time, you're like, okay, where is the water? But you see, if you don't try and formulate a plan, at least I try to formulate a plan, but half the times it doesn't come out the way I try to do it.
Right. I mean, I would imagine it's unpredictable.
It's very, very, very unpredictable. And where the diet is concerned, you have to try to provide them with. It's like you're dealing with a child again. Okay, today they will want macaroni pie. Tomorrow, I don't like macaroni pie. So you have to try to cope with it, yes, but try and be realistic. It's a lot of patience because you don't ever have the ability to tell them, do it, and you will get a response. You might have to sit there and try to convince them that they want to do it. And that's very difficult.
Kind of like Inception almost.
Yeah, kind of like. And that is a good movie, actually. But that is the key to it. If you fight the person,
Right.
you will not succeed.
You have to work with them, essentially.
Yeah, you really have to work with them. And the best thing, like I was telling a friend of mine to do, because she asked me a lot of advice too, is try to make it not embarrassing. Okay, because I'm sure if I said, Rochelle, did you bathe today?
Nope.
Rochelle is actually asking me that a lot lately.
No shame, though. No shame over here. He's thinking proud.
It's a man thing too, it's a man thing. But yeah, if you ask the person in that tone of voice, they'll say, oh, God.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So try and be a little more fun with it.
Yeah,
You
you have
take
to
a
be
little
gentle
small
anyway.
fresh. You take a
Yeah,
little
small
small
fresh.
fresh.
Yeah.
Good. Or,
You take a pass.
or you know what you do too? We're going out. So let's
Right.
get before we go out now.
Right,
So
right.
sometimes you have to find things to do every other day. You don't really want to go and do.
I'm really surprised that the doctor didn't have any support group or advice or guidelines
No,
to give you.
basically, it was more like, well, actually she had a fall.
Right.
So I went in for the fall. And then the doctor realized, why she's not answering the questions, you answering the questions. And then the topper came up. And she was referred to me as someone who dealt with, persons of that age and getting older. So basically ran through, you would say, you could try this or that. Then you're left studying, okay, a fourth opinion, a third opinion, a fifth opinion. But to me, the doctors I don't know if they don't want you to know or they just don't have the time.
Yeah.
But it's more or less, okay, thank you.
Yeah, because I mean, it seems like you have to figure most of this out on your own. And, like you said, you're not somebody who sinks easily. So,
No.
obviously you will persevere and get better at
I
coping with it.
tried.
But I could imagine some people just are
They will
clueless.
give
Yeah.
up because you see, is to deal with the whole going forward and going forward and going forward and always being positive. It is not exactly the most easy thing to do.
Right.
Because if I ask you, Rochelle, the same question more than 5 times, and I realize you're not responding,
I will want to beat you.
a little less violence, but yes.
I can't imagine what it's like to have your mother get to the point where she's asking you for water 15 times in a row.
And then too, I have I've always looked up to her as somebody who's been like a strong role model. She's always been a go-getter. I mean, you can tell by my personality alone. She's strong in her own self. I always considered her, solid. And then with these little changes and the little differentiation in her personality and even her facial structure, because she's always like frowning. You understand? And her mood is always like pensive. Like, should I talk to Justin? Justin has caterpillar eyebrows,
Right.
So it's always a level of mistrust. You see that they're very, totally. And even when my other sibling came from the States, she knows that's her daughter, but she's not as open.
Not as open.
If she needs to go to the washroom, she wouldn't say, she would say, she'll come to me kind of very softly,
Right.
But she wouldn't be as open with the first child.
Right.
Because I guess...
You're the primary caregiver,
Yeah,
so
I
that's
am.
who she's used to. So, I mean, we're talking, and it could come across to anyone listening that you're caring for your mom full time, but that is certainly not at all even a little bit the case. Walk us through what a day in your life is like, because, I mean, people forget that when you're dealing with something like this, you still have a whole life to take care of.
I thought I did at one point. You see, I would love to, the life that you once had, as people say, is very different. There's no, okay, let's go so, or no spontaneous, you can't just up and go.
Yeah.
You always have to, I have to check and see if I have maybe a caregiver.
If you could carve out the time to...
Carve out the time, or is she in a pensive mood? Because you don't want to leave them in an odd room and you just come home from work and you say, okay, I'm gone. That sets off a whole can of emotions, like you're insecure, where you're going and why you're going and how you're going, and then those questions, and you're trying to have a good time, you won't have a good time. So you're now overtaken by the I need to be home.
The guilt.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you're not gonna go for a nice dinner, say wherever, Trotters or whatever, and be comfortable.
Right.
You're looking at the phone. It's like when you have a toddler. You're studying, okay, I left them home alone. Are they going to light the stove? Are they going to wander in the yard?
Yeah, there's always that anxiety.
So, yes, you'll be out and, you're among people and you're laughing sometimes. But, always in the back of your head saying, okay, should I have gone? An incident happened a night we were dressing to go and she had that fall. And then I was like, oh, you see, if I wasn't
If you were
rushing
in
her,
there, yeah.
Right.
or if I wasn't so excited to go, maybe she would have gone in her bed and it would have been just an average day.
Yeah, but you mean we can't have those thoughts, right? Because
No, you
we
shouldn't
can't
really have those
change
thoughts because you
that,
cannot change what could have, should have. But
Right.
it's inevitable.
It's
as a
inevitable,
human.
yeah. And what about work? I mean, you still have a full-time job.
Yeah, a full-time job is right, 8 hours a day. So that's and wonderful traffic. Yeah, that is a lot too because your responsibility is to your job, is your livelihood, it was pays the bills, and then you're still at your job and you're still sometimes 10% home, and then you'll get a call and you have to go to HR with it's an emergency again, and you see the eyebrows like
Those
And
pesky HR people.
yeah.
Right? Oh,
And
God.
how many times could this happen in 1 month? But literally, sometimes 1 month could actually be very bad. You'll have
Yeah.
like many days, doctor this, doctor that, not in a good mood, or some strange episode or whatever. And you really can't go and tell your supervisor, I'm late because, well, mommy didn't feel so bad. Because she's not going to, it comes like saying to a teacher, don't get your homework. They're not really interested.
Right.
So that is another side of emotions that you have to deal with.
Which I think is a little unfair, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I guess that's not really politically correct
Yeah.
because there should be a little. But thankfully, I have a supervisor that is somewhat lenient. But
Right.
then again, I work for a corporation, so she has that opportunity. But I can imagine a smaller business or a smaller businessman or is not going to really.
Yeah. Just to provide some context, so I know you kind of said it's similar to raising a child or a toddler. What sort of like activities would your mom engage in during the
No.
day? Yeah.
Well, nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, she's just as long as I'm not around, she will sit and try to watch the television, but the television watches her. She
Right.
can't tell you what's going on. That's why when I get home, I have to take her, reprogram her, and make her have a little mind activity, a little conversation. I
Right.
use laughter a lot. Try and give her a joke. When it was better in the early times, we used dancing. And try to go out to dance and try to keep her active. But now, at her age, at 88, she really isn't involved
Right.
much. She, television, bed, gallery as the basis of her life.
Right.
So that's why when I come home, it's like, the entertainer start.
Yeah. And I imagine you have to kind of keep coming up with different ways and
Yeah,
different
like on a
methods.
Sunday, I take her to her religious activities, and then after that, I find somewhere for her to go every Sunday. So,
You sound so enthusiastic about that.
I could just see the excitement.
yeah, it's daunting unless I have a third party
Right,
because the
yeah.
conversation is the same.
Right.
And then she will say, "Didn't we come here?" And mommy, we're now coming here. And sometimes she might be in a good mood. She'll probably say, I don't. You're trying your best, and you
Yeah.
probably bought a cheesecake or some randomness, and it's like, you don't get a response you want.
Right.
Yeah.
So having another person there is always good, so that the conversation could actually go in a circle.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always happen in reality.
Speaking of which, people who might want to help and reach out but have no idea how
No.
to cope, what can they do? You said maybe the company, just
The
like when you
company
go
is
out.
great.
Yeah.
I do love going for drives. Just so you know, in the night.
Any gentleman callers out there?
Well, I think my phone is ringing. My phone is.
Oh yeah, this is a good idea. But the thing is, yes, you need like company. You need to have another voice to talk to because you could go a little stir crazy. Kathy, can I get water? Kathy, can I get water?
Yeah.
Can
So is that what are the most challenging aspects of it? Because you spoke about the repetition
every
and-
day,
yeah.
every day because it's like how you get accustomed to Rochelle might say, her personality. Okay, Rochelle is relatively early sometimes, late sometimes, but with a dementia person, you never know.
Right.
So you're always trying to figure out, all right, do I be bubbly this morning? Do I not be bubbly? Should I make the tea now? Should I not make the tea now?
So it sounds like you could really suffer from decision fatigue, always trying to think of what's the right choice.
Your brain tends, you tend to wonder if you will get dementia too. Because,
And it happens.
That's the scary thing.
Especially with spouses. You know, we've seen it in
It's symptomatic.
research. Yeah.
But that's what I talk to people about with depression too, because to me, dementia is a form of depression. And, well, I know a lot of depression because of the family history. And I realized that if you, the caregiver, gloomy or moody or I don't want to be around you, it
rubs off.
Yeah. And the patient becomes difficult.
They absorb that energy. Yeah, I mean, they might not be all here, but they still feel,
Yeah,
you know, they might still
they feed
feel-
off of your energy or whatever you call it. And that is why, you know, trying to be positive all the time is a key. It doesn't always work the engine though.
Right. Just to wrap up, you have in-house care,
I do.
which I know a lot of people struggle with. How long did it take you to find someone
It
reliable?
took me a long time. It's not a nice experience because you're juggling work, you're juggling traffic from Four Roads to St. James, and you're juggling to reach back on time because I used to have to actually go to work, go back home lunchtime,
Oh, shucks.
give meals, fly back to the office, fly back down the road, stop off at high-low.
Yeah.
Before I had this caregiver, and it was tumultuous to even find somebody who could look intelligent enough to be a caregiver. And it's the randomness of it all. Because you would think.
As Francis was saying, that it seems like a lot of people do it as like a hustle, as just a job.
Yeah, just taking
They
on
don't
something,
really care.
whatever,
Yeah.
and you come home and you see them in the same position, and you see the person that you're supposed to care for looking as though,
Nothing. Yeah.
you know, and your house looks as though, okay, then I leave that cup of coffee there, and it's still there. But thank God now I have one that's more reliable, more. So you're not as anxious, but
Right.
it is difficult to get home care.
So how long did it take you to find this person?
It took me over 6 months of interchanging.
Right.
So
Like
I went
actively,
I went from one person to okay, change over to the next person, try this one.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
And call around here, call around there, call this agency, call that agency.
Oh boy.
Even try calling St. James Infirmary, and again we don't deal with this.
Oh wow. Yeah. So these support, like we were saying, it's difficult.
It's daunting. I mean, I would love if it would be a little more on hand or
Right.
hands on, as they say, because it's frustrating enough when you don't know where to go and you're guessing, and then somebody gives you a half kind of okay, sure, yeah, okay, there. It's worse than if you don't answer the question.
Right.
You know?
Well, on that note, I mean, just a quick little sponsorship message for Age Caribbean, which was not around at the time that you were experiencing this. They have a website that offers some useful information, agecaribbean.com, and you can check. And the Alzheimer Society does have support groups. I know you might have. I know you've been
Yeah, I
there.
went to some conferences. They had one in our community center in my area, and that was
Right.
very informative, and I was
Right.
very grateful for that.
Yeah, so you can look out. I mean, there's more things coming out of the woodworks now, but I
Yeah.
mean, it hasn't always been that way, and we're still,
No.
as a country, coming to terms with Alzheimer's disease.
Still catching up.
Still catching up.
That's sad.
Yeah. But thank you for sharing.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
Thank you, Justin, for
Very
having
candid.
me. Thank you, Rochelle, for having me.
Yes, thank you. All right.
All right.